Kyle Klingman with FloWrestling along with Scott Beck. Welcome to the 41st edition of Women's Wrestling Weekly, the show. Scott, I know you saw this, the incredible data that was just released, high school numbers, USA Wrestling Girls Development Committee. And so I want to give credit. I believe that is Andrea Yamamoto and Joan Fulp. If there are other people that need to be included in that, please let me know. But those are the ones that are top of mind for me. I love this when they put this out. It's so beautifully done. They do such a great job of compiling the data, and it's motivating to look at. You can look at state by state and see the numbers and how they grow, but we'll put it up on screen here, the high school data over the years. It's exploding. 1990, 112 girls participating. 2025, 79,403. And you can see why this is the sport that we're talking about with the explosive growth. It's just so fun to see these numbers. I love diving into Iowa and just seeing how it spikes once you have the sanctioning of the state. You can see how Iowa goes up. You can see how California had stable numbers. They continue to grow, but they were one of the original states. But just looking at that, so motivating to see.
I saw it yesterday. I did a decent dive through that book, and first of all, I commend them on putting together. I commend them on all the work they've done in helping things get sanctioned, grow the sport. But that resource, just to actually see it, you can see all the colleges that have it, all the high school by state, the state champs, the growth, the numbers. It's phenomenal. And I remember at Beat the Streets where there was a part of me that was like kind of worried, like, are we just expanding too quickly? And I remember Kira Berry said to me, no, they'll if we get the colleges, the girls will keep coming, and they sure have. So the numbers are unbelievable, and it is from people like the rest of the girls, Sally Roberts community, Kira Berry, Yamamoto, Andrea, and Sue Johnson, Terry Stein, just a lot of the full balance, Catherine and her mother. I mean, just tremendous energy behind this push. All the college coaches, the high school coaches, the community, and it really is amazing to see this and to have that resource just for people looking about. Hey, I'm looking for junior college here, or hey, who's what teams are good in my state, or just to follow the sport, learn about the sport. It was a phenomenal resource. They did a really good job with it.
And we'll just point out, because we can put it all on one page, the I states, Idaho 2020, 223 up to 918 this year. Indiana, which has some of the best wrestlers ever produced, 2020, 149, 2025, 2152, 2,152. Illinois, another great state, 2020, 835, all the way up to now, 3,675. Iowa, which is dear to my heart, 2020, 571. Now they have 3,422. Just
It's amazing.
congratulations.
It's amazing, and it's the only sanctioned kind of combat sport really for women, but it's just amazing. And the other kind of just takeaways just from pouring through that book, and I'll do a deeper I did a pretty good dive yesterday, but I'll do a really deep dive. Number one, the states that are kind of disappointing are the New England states. The numbers are just like, Jersey, you have Connecticut's decent, but if you look at the numbers in like Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Vermont, I'd like to see that grow a little bit. There's definitely laggards, and they mentioned in they talked about how New York is the only state that sanctioned the girls are doing freestyle, and that may segue into, again, at some point we'll do the deeper dive on some of the pin stuff. But I think what happens is because New York has sanctioned freestyle, those go into the pin formulas, and they were some of the complaints where the New York athletes have a lot more matches that are count in the pin counting. So if you wrestle more matches and you win, you go up a lot. And that's why I think in some of the situations, there was a little bit of rumbling that New York, relative to some of the high seeds, didn't perform as well at Fargo. And I think maybe some of those high seeds were a little artificially higher than they should have been because they're getting more matches. But, I may be butchering that, but I think that it ties into that.
But you're right on the New England. You see those numbers and they're low relative to everything else that's happening. You'll get the one-off. You'll get the Skylar Hattendorfs from New Hampshire. I would love to see those numbers just get up a little bit.
It's kind of perplexing to me, to tell you the truth, because, New England has decent, it's not the power states, but wrestling is, people like wrestling in New England. Massachusetts has good wrestling, Rhode Island, you have some, Johnson and Wales, you have Brown, people wrestle. I just don't know why it's lagging. In New York, it's had very good growth, obviously in Jersey, but as you're pushing north, New York, could you think that would, expand? So hopefully that we can do a little bit better and get a little more push, because it's hard for me to believe that there were not female athletes that would participate in the number, so I think that we may need to build a little more up there and try to get those numbers up. That's just a little striking to me.
Do yourself a favor, take a look at that. We'll make sure you see what it looks like, but the Matt.com has that for public consumption. It really is worth looking into and just dissecting the data, see where your state stacks up and where we can improve, just like we talked about in New England, how we maybe bolster that a little bit. But the data is fascinating. Before the Senior World Championships, we're going to have Reese Larremendy back on so we can break that down. And then hopefully for the U23s, we've talked about having Randy Miller and Aaron Golston on to break that down. So three experts. I love what Reese Larremendy did the last time, so I'm glad we're going to have her back to break things down.
She's got the expectations are high this time, Reese. I'm sure she'll be prepared, but she was really good. So we're looking forward to having her on again. And she had really good insight. So we'll see what she has to say.
Senior World Championships, as we talked about, they're coming up. Had a chance to go to the Rudis/USA Wrestling photo shoot. Now, Rudis is the partner with USA Wrestling right now, and what an incredible thing they're doing. They're really hyping it up. They had a full marketing team. I've never seen anything like this where they really invested in Greco-Roman women. They're going to do men's freestyle next week, but to be able to sit down with 8 of the 10 athletes for the women's freestyle team, didn't have Cristel Rodriguez or Helen Maroulis, but you really get a chance to talk to them intimately, and you see one thing on the mat, but then when you talk to them behind the scenes, it's a different type of maybe mentality or a different way of how you view someone. And the person that struck me was Macey Kilty. I never really had a chance to get to know her, really get to talk to her that much. Of course, you see her in the mix zone, but that's a little bit different because you're just talking about what just took place. But to talk to her, I related to her. I like her mentality. She's just a nice human being that is completely focused, and you see why she's been successful and may be our most consistent wrestler. I mean, of course, Helen is too, but she's right there as our most consistent wrestler, probably our most disciplined wrestler that we have on the mat and off of it.
Yeah, I mean, Macy is always prepared and has always performed well at big events, whether national championships, trials. She's had a couple of bad luck situations with injuries in key matches to make world teams or Olympic teams, but when she's on the big stage, she performs very well. And I can tell you this just from being around her at tournaments internationally, and then hearing from Michaela, who roomed with her at Colorado Springs for a while, and they've been on trips. Macey is just very meticulous in preparation, very thoughtful. She's not the loudest, but that doesn't mean that she's not game on. I mean, Macey is very focused, very driven, goes to practice with a purpose, knows what she wants to work on, what she wants to get out of it. Does not like losing or giving up points. Takes practice very seriously and just very methodical and knows what she needs and wants in her preparation. And just a consummate pro is the way I would describe her. She is an absolute professional in her approach to wrestling.
And even talking to her off camera, just asking her if she liked the photo shoot and all the glitz and glamour. She said, it's not really my thing, but she understands that it's important for the advancement and the growth of not only women's wrestling, but USA Wrestling's brand. And I appreciated that honesty, that it wasn't really her thing. And she's a little bit more locked in.
She's from a good family. I know both her parents, seen them at a lot of tournaments. And you really see what somebody's made of. That, Macy had, as I said, some pretty serious shoulder injuries that required surgery, and they were both in competitions, either aggravated or first injured in competitions to make teams, like literally in finals where she's won a match, had to default out, just heartbreaking situations. But she always handled it exceptionally well. Didn't do a woe is me, the world's against me, this sucks. She knew it sucked, but she took the rehab very seriously. Ultimately, made the decision to get the more serious surgery rather than just keep Mickey Mousing with it, which took more time, but did the rehab right and didn't feel sorry for herself. And just to her, the rehab was like a competition. And that's why she recovered very well and wrestled very well. And, I think she's a strong contender for a world medal / title this year.
I'm glad you brought that up because she did go into detail all of that because you're right.
Really?
Yeah, 2021 Olympic trials, she was 1-1 in the best of three finals, then has to forfeit out next year. Happens the same thing,
Yep.
2022. So it's difficult, and then she comes back. It's medal, and then another U23 medal.
Yeah.
She's really done a nice job of coming back from this.
Yeah, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, I talked to a father after one of it. It's like, what do you say? I mean, he's really upset because she's upset, but they handled it like pros.
It was fun talking to Kennedy Blades and Kylie Welker about their superstardom and what it's like being in Iowa City. And they both talked about it that when they go out, whether it's a convenience store, grocery store, there's people lurking with cell phones and gawking and pointing. And so they're now aware of that being in Wrestletown, USA in Iowa City. And it carries over to other areas, but they are celebrities there. And we've talked about that being in Iowa City. You will be a celebrity.
Like in Iowa, like I'm at the store and people like come up to me and stuff, and I'm like, oh, like, and I feel like I look bad, like I'm just like so shy and stuff. But I try to be normal, but I'm actually like freaking out and shaking inside. Like I don't think people realize that, but yeah. Sometimes it's hard though, cause I just want to be like like not normal, but just doing myself, chilling and stuff. But then I swear I see like people recording me, and I'm just like, I'm just trying to eat my food and want to take a bad picture, like I'm putting something in my mouth, stuff like that. So it's just kind of funny to me, but I'm getting used to it for sure. And like I said, like when I was younger, I mean, when I saw Helen or Jordan Burroughs and stuff, like I would freak out and I would be like, oh my gosh, like this is the best wrestler, my favorite wrestler. So, and they were so sweet to me. So like, why would I not do the same to anyone else? Like, I know what it means to, like, I know that feeling, so I will always just try to, talk to them, do anything, any autographs, anything for them because, like I hope I'm inspiring them, and that's the end goal for me.
They have superstars in a place that understands and appreciates it.
Yeah.
So it's great.
And we talked about that with Kennedy. It's not just the Olympic silver medal. And I like how she broke this down. She said there's a real silver lining in this is that she knows that she's been able to penetrate the marketplace, even getting a silver medal, that it's not just about winning a gold medal, because when you win a gold, it's just automatic that you're going to be a superstar. So it's because of who she is, the person she is, the kind-hearted person she is, and her style on the mat. There's so much substance there. You see the big grand amplitude throws. It all meshes together, and really appreciated her insights on that.
People want to see that. I was having a conversation about that, and some of these new wrestling leagues, and it's like, in MMA, and Mikhail's explained this to me. They have some like this challenges series to see like who makes it the UFC. It's not just like who wins. Sometimes they'll take the guy that loses if they're exciting and they're attacking and they're doing fun, aggressive things. And it's like if we're gonna have these other leagues and they're gonna have a chance, I know Michaela talked to Izzy Martinez. He's like, people, the ones that we're going to take, in the league, people better wrestle. If we're going to try to build something, people need to score points, be aggressive. I mean, and who better exemplifies that than Kennedy Blades? I mean, people are just going to get launched and, in full plays with high amplitude. She gets fives and they're not, you don't see them all that often. So she's exciting. And, you and I have also talked about this, Kyle. I don't think whether you take, I know the world loves a winner and it's great to get a gold medal, but in my opinion, if somebody takes an Olympic silver medal and loses in the finals of the Olympics, in my mind, I don't diminish that. Like to me, they are a rock star and the top of the world. And it shouldn't be that it's such a binary thing. Well, you have the Olympic gold, you don't. Like to me, you win Olympic silver medal, you're a rock star and should be treated as such, especially if you conduct yourself in a good way.
Well, and that's a great point because I think of the people that I'm in awe of in the women's wrestling space. Jenna Burkett, she's a world bronze medalist. She never won a world gold. Afsoon Johnston and Shannon Williams, those early pioneers, they never won gold medals at the world level. You think about Tanya Verbeek, she has 6 world and Olympic medals. She never won gold. So it's about winning, of course. They have the medals, but it's about who they are, the person they are, their how they
And
represent
it's like
themselves on the mat.
you lose to in the Olympics 3 times. You lost to Yoshida, right? So she's only a 16-time world Olympic champion. It's so should she be diminished because she lost to Yoshida 3 times in the Olympics and took, I think it was a bronze and 2 silvers, or I forget which way it is, but something one or the other, either 2 silvers and a bronze, or a silver and 2 bronzes. But that doesn't diminish anything for me, at least, and I don't think it should.
Not at all. And for me, it's about the story and how they carry themselves with time.
Yeah.
She had early success, stuck with it, stuck with it, stuck with it, and then just had this explosion of doing well for Team Canada. And she really was the reason that Canada was doing so well during that era.
Yeah, and listen, Jenna Burkett made a world team when she was very young and then didn't for a really long time and then got really good. Won her world medal, but she beat Jakara, I mean, she's I think did she beat Helen in a match?
She did. Olympic
She
trial.
did. She beat Helen in a match. Yeah. So I mean, the path is not always linear, or it's not always progressive. There's peaks and valleys. It could be injuries, it could be mentality, it could be personal issues, it could be weight class. Who knows? But it's just you don't judge somebody, in my opinion, just by did you win an Olympic gold medal. It's you judge the body of work and the character of the athlete in person.
Yeah, and I think that we've underutilized Afsoon Johnston and Shannon Williams and maybe even Trisha Saunders, that I would love to see those 3 just go on the road and tell their story about how they did this, what they had to endure, and how they had those early pioneering days. Just, I'm sure you've heard them, and we've maybe even mentioned it, that instead of the outstanding wrestler, they gave the most beautiful wrestler as that award. Just those early days, just what you had to go through during that era. It's staggering now.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get into a massive political discussion here, but the women have come. This was a sexist country, just like women are not always treated equally throughout many parts of the world. And it's here. I mean, look at what a housewife did in 1955. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And as a country, we've come a long way. But in sports, they had to deal with that garbage. And the pioneers had to, be unwelcome in wrestling rooms. I think, I'm not saying that there's not wrestling rooms now that women may not feel welcome, but I think for the most part, as a father and daughter that's been in many wrestling rooms and with many men, both athletes and coaches, we've come a long way. And for the most part, with very few exceptions, people have treated her very well, and judge her as how she is an athlete and a person, not her sex.
And can you imagine Deanna Ricks, now Deanna Betterman, she was going for her state title in Maine against the boys. The entire spotlight was on her to see if she could win this for the first time. Can you imagine the pressure? She said she cried beforehand. Nobody prepares you for that type of history, that type of spotlight. And she didn't win the match. I think it went into overtime, but that is a lot of pressure for a high school girl to go through.
I mean, Michaela Hutchinson, I think, was one of the first, if not the first state champ from Alaska. I mean, Macey Kilty wrestled. I think she took second. I think she won the. I mean, but these girls like Jimenez just, won a state title. We've come a long way, and the women, luckily, they don't have to do that now. Some may choose to still, but they don't have to. And and for the most part, I can say this just again from being in the rooms and watching and from experience. For the most part, the men are pretty cool to the women for the most part, and the worst one, especially the really good ones. The good ones don't really have anything to prove. So if you're a really good woman, girl, and you're wrestling a guy that knows, that's like the whether it would be a Vito Araujo or like they're not going to Jacori when she's right. They're not going to beat her up. They know they're 5-time state champs. They don't need to prove anything. It's the guy that, maybe wins the sections and doesn't place at states that gets taken down by that can be, but a little aggressive at times. So, but it's up to the athlete to feel comfortable. And I'd say, having seen this a lot, that if you're not comfortable wrestling a boy, just stop it. Don't, if you feel you can get injured or the athlete's trying to prove something, just don't wrestle with him. Nobody cares, and it's not worth getting injured, or just somebody that's not that good. It's very sloppy. That's where you're getting elbowed or kneed that doesn't react the right way. But normally the guys that are really good, that the top level women like kind of need to wrestle with the guy because they probably can beat up the other, female athletes around their weight class and age. Wrestle the better ones. The better ones give you a better feel and don't have anything to prove. At least that's in my experience of watching this a lot.
And it's interesting that we think about it in the ways, at least I do, I can't speak for you, that it's accepted and like you said, that it's welcoming. I'm always staggered when someone might say, I don't like women's wrestling or I don't think they should. It kind of buckles my knees a little bit because I always just assume we're so far past that and that it should be accepted by this point and that we're just thinking about how do we win world medals and get them to the elite
Yeah.
level. It's not even about gender at this point. It's about this is their opportunity to shine. So I'm always a little stunned when I get some of that negative language.
To me, when you get that, to me, it's normally from ignorance because that person saying that has not watched high level or medium, just female athletes train and compete and work hard. I mean, the guys that have been around it see how hard the women work. Now, there's just going to be some people that no matter what are sexist or want no part of it. But for the most part, I think they're respected for the most part because they've earned the respect because they train just as hard. They may not be as strong at certain age as you get older, but they train just as hard. They're just as focused, and especially at younger ages. If anything, they have better attention spans relative to the age. And you see that in martial arts as well. And like Taekwondo, the females at the younger ages, especially, are much easier to better to concentrate and focus, and tend to be more technical.
In interview after interview after interview, you hear these girls say, I started in jiu-jitsu or judo, and then I went off because I liked wrestling better because there's more opportunities I can go in that lane. It just seems like that is a huge path right now for a lot of these girls to get into wrestling.
Yeah, maybe even a taekwondo, karate, some type of like martial art. Yeah, and I mean, I think some of it comes from too, where like people that some of the girls may watch some MMA when they're younger, maybe their dad's watching, and you're seeing, like you need to have ground skills, whether it's Brazilian jiu-jitsu or wrestling, but you need something if you're gonna even be interested in that stuff. So you start to look at it, and it's it's the type of person that does it just likes the combat sports, and I think. I've done them both a lot, like a lot of different martial arts and wrestled a lot. Wrestling's more martial arts are pretty damn technical actually, but wrestling is like it's a better workout. It's you're always touching and grabbing, whereas you're doing. I mean, Brazilian jiu-jitsu you're grabbing, but you're on your back kind of. Wrestling's a quicker, more fast paced. So I think just it's a better workout. And so the people that really are into like fitness really get into it. Wrestling, I think, pushes you more like physically in the workout. I mean, that's. But I mean, they're all interesting to me. I mean, the concept you say like how do two people try to kill each other or win in combat? It's a very intellectual thing, and different martial arts have different philosophies. Whether it's circular, linear, grabbing, throwing, striking, kicking, they're all different.
Duda Rodriguez, who did well in California, is going to McKendree. She had an interesting comment about that where she was in jiu-jitsu and she was in great shape and doing well. She said her first practice in wrestling, she cried, her back hurt unbelievably, and she said the energy system didn't carry over for her. So it has to help at some level. You would hate to go in dry, but it just shows you that they're both different.
You ask any MMA fighter which practice of the whole week or two they dread the most, and they'll tell you the wrestling practices because they're the hardest. I mean, it's hard to get kicked in the face or punched in the face, but it's the actual workout aspect of it. You go to deeper waters, I think, from wrestling practice than anything else.
Let's talk NWCA convention that just took place in Florida. There is a correlation here that the ones that go consistently happen to be doing the best at the women's college level. Gary Mayabb was there representing the University of Iowa. Love Gary and his perspective. It's circled around. I think Clarissa's been there, Tanya and Clarissa, and then maybe Gary and Clarissa at different points, but they're there. And then the fight out for the second best team, which we may find out this year, North Central and Life will wrestle in January on FloWrestling. So we had that conversation on one episode, which was the second best team. Of course, Life is an NAIA and North Central is a Division III program that wrestles with NCAA schools. But yeah, Joe Norton, Ashley Flavin, and Gary Mayabb talking about their programs. And it was fascinating listening to each and how they view the sport and how they got there. And if we start with Iowa, it's interesting. To my understanding, I don't think Gary, Tanya, or Clarissa had any college coaching background going into the University of Iowa, and they're exceptional coaches going into that. But I'd love to learn from them how they learned on the fly all of the just the hoops that you have to jump through and all the compliance issues of being a Power 4 program. I think that would be difficult to learn on the fly.
Maybe got some help from, some of the managers and stuff in the men's program. I don't know. I think it's a lot to learn. It's a lot goes into it. The academic eligibility things, all the recruiting rules, the contact rules, funding, fundraising. It's very difficult.
But it really was interesting with Ashley. Your assistant coach is your husband or associate coach. And so she went through what you have to do there. And I liked what she said about what she learned. And she was so fast in her response. One thing she had to learn, she said, respond to emails.
If you could go back to the beginning when you first started coaching and take what you know now, what advice would you give yourself?
Answer emails on time. So I really sat down with Jamie Pendergast, our AD, after really being behind on paperwork. And she's like, just Ash, when you get behind, it's not just you. We have 23, 24 sports. And so there might be 7, 8, 9 of you that are behind, which puts the assistant AD behind, which puts the AD behind, which puts enrollment or housing or something behind, and just really learning what that trickle down means. So just trying to not answering an email is actually disrespectful. Like, I thought, it doesn't matter, but it really does matter. And so how important each little thing is to the growth of the department and the good of the university.
And how she functions with her husband and now their son, Kit, who comes to practices. So I think one thing she said was now she and Christian have separate offices, which now they're not around each other 24/7. They actually have their own space. Sometimes Christian is able to relate to someone differently than Ashley is and who talks to the right person. So it's really interesting having them break that down and what that might look like, Scott.
Yeah, it is. And they're both, I don't know them as well as you do, but I've talked to them both just tremendous, advocates for women's wrestling and done a great job with that program for sure. And it is an interesting dynamic. I don't know, but it seems to me, just from what I've seen, watching them at tournaments, seeing them interviewed, seeing them on that, they ham and egg it pretty well. It seems like they just complement each other and do a really good job as a team.
And then Joe Norton got into the possible D3 split, how he hates it for his program, but understands how it has to be equitable. And if you're a D3 program and something that cannot offer athletic scholarships, he understands why it's happening. He wants to go against the best. But he talked about going against Iowa and the challenges. But I was most interested in what he talked about and how he looks for a recruit and how detailed that is and the red flags he's been able to identify.
What are the red flags that you look for that you can cut that off at the pass before it becomes a problem within your program?
Yeah, I want to talk to the recruit in the process. Something we always say, I learned this from Rob Cole doing the Leadership Academy, is you got to recruit the parents, especially in Division III where we're asking them to pay a little bit more money than they might be paying at a D2 or an NAIA that's giving them the money. I certainly have to recruit mom and dad, but I want to talk to the girl that I'm recruiting. If I'm asking questions on the visit and mom or dad pipes in for them, that's a red flag for me. Because mom and dad aren't going to wrestle for me for the next 4 years. She is. So that's something we talk about. Every girl that comes on a visit with us, our team will take her out for ice cream or smoothies, in downtown Naperville, which is beautiful. So part of it is marketing what we've got too. But I'll always ask the girls what kind of questions she was asking. And if they're asking about wrestling, if they're asking about the team culture, those are good things. We've had girls that are asking, what's the men's team like? Do you guys hang out? Are they good looking? Things like that, right? Those are red flags that, her mind isn't probably where she's not going to fit in. If you come into what our culture is right now on the women's side and you don't love wrestling and prioritize wrestling in school, we have a 3.9 team GPA, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb if you're just chasing boys, chasing parties, whatever. So those are some probably red flags that have stuck out for us at times.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody knows what most coaches know by and large what their team culture is and what works and what doesn't and what their athletes are like. Listen, I can make the argument, maybe some coaches would argue the fact that, they care if the guys are cute or not means that they're well-rounded or like to blow a steam and hang out a little bit and releases pressure, makes them better wrestlers. I don't know, but it's all up to the coach, and the culture of the team, and teams are different, But Joe's a very meticulous guy, so I think kind of everything he does, so that doesn't surprise me that he approaches it that way.
And I think he has to because of what his program is. I think if it was a different program where it was maybe a Power 4 program or a Division 1, it might be a little different in how he approaches it. And I think with Division 3, you have to get into the lane and be disciplined and say, if we're going to compete with the best of the best of the best, we have to have a certain model. And certainly he's created that, and he's got the energy and boy, what enthusiasm he has. It's incredible what he's done.
Yeah, he does a great job, and with a lot less resources than most.
And then listening to Gary, it was interesting because Iowa essentially we're giving you a Ferrari, the nicest Ferrari ever created or known to mankind, and now you're responsible for it, and
and you better win the race.
Yeah, and
you're the fastest car.
Talked about some of the challenge. I think probably a misconception that he brought up, more or less, is that it's not like there's just this blank check and we have all of the money and the resources that you could ever imagine in the world.
What's the biggest challenge that you guys face as a program that people don't know about?
I think that, we are so fortunate to have the great resources that we do have, and resources that we're thankful for and blessed with. At the same point in time, there are times where people believe there is more of those resources. And I think that that's one of those things that there is a fixed cap on everything, and attempting to do business the right way and to keep it as even as possible, but yet put that many hammers in one room. That's always, you just brought it up. You add Kennedy into the mix, now all of a sudden that room changes. You add Macey into the mix, that room changes, and it forces things to get tighter.
The art, especially, it's changed now with NIL and but in the old days when you have 9.9 scholarships, you could be a great team and you have to figure out how to divvy them up, and you hear even in with the rule now, you have 30 athletes on the team, in NCAA. So it's like, okay, how do we get the right mix of people in the room between, our hammers, people that aren't going to get money but like the sport, but are going to be good partners, who you have in the room. It's not just about, obviously it's about your coaches, your trainers, your starters, but the starters need to wrestle other people, and ultimately, those other people either will be ready if called upon due to an injury or some other circumstance, or maybe a year or two later will become the starters. But some people never start. But that doesn't mean they're not important to the team and haven't had an important role, because you need partners. And, number one, someone want to kill each other against each other the whole time. As we talk about, you want to have somebody that you can beat, somebody that beats you, and two people that are kind of right, same level. So you need a mix in the room.
But it was interesting hearing him talk about some of the things that he wouldn't talk about, where the University of Iowa is like the New York Yankees. And so if you want to go visit the New York Yankees, you don't just walk up to Yankee Stadium and say, I want Aaron Judge's autograph. There are hoops you have to go through. There's compliance. And I learned that early. I was like, hey, could I get something for an auction? It was like, you got to go through compliance and you got to do this. So it's a different mentality when you're going there. It's like you don't just get access. You don't just get in. I think if you want to go through the back door at North Central or at Life University, you could just be and say, hey, I'm here. Is Ashley around? It's not that way at these Power Four schools. You have some, ways to get in, and it's difficult to get up the chain of command at some of these big schools. And I think that they face that. I would assume that they could hire someone just to respond to emails with all the requests. I want to go to Iowa. I bet they get hundreds and hundreds of athletes inquiring, and I don't know how they keep up on that, but I'm assuming that's the type of thing they have to deal with that is different than probably any other school. And just as an example, of course, you know who the New York Yankees are, you know who the Iowa Hawkeyes are. Remember, we came out to New York, you had never heard of the double A Somerset team with the Yankees, and they're right down the road from you. I think that's probably what North Central and McKendree and Grand Valley State deal with a little bit.
I mean, to be completely honest with you, before I, started following women's wrestling, I never heard of half these colleges. So I never heard of McKendree. I never heard of North Central. I just never did. You wouldn't. In New York, you probably wouldn't. I mean, I never heard of Camels. I mean, the Cumberlands. I mean, these are just not. It's not like Oklahoma State. It's just you just wouldn't unless you were local or you followed women's wrestling, I guess.
Yeah, with Iowa, I think there's challenges that come with that, and how do you select the right people? And Gary wouldn't answer that when Andy asked him about what are you looking for in a recruit. He just more talked about his team, and he didn't talk about it. So I don't know if he's just trying to guard who they.
Yeah, he did a very good job of avoiding the questions.
A lot of prospective student athletes say they want to go to Iowa. How do you guys determine which ones you're going to recruit?
That is a great issue. It's a great thing for us to have that kind of push that makes it a spot to go to, and we're very fortunate with the women that we have, and we try to work every day in that, retain them, recruit them, and then at some point we're going to release them. But we're going to have a whole bunch here that are, we are now this group that we've had that has been young on the young side. Now they're all juniors, and so I think we're going to have to reach for that. We've got a great class coming in, 6 athletes that are just really good, and we're very happy for them.
Just floated through it. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, but they don't need us. They have Tanner Lefevre. They have beat writers. Tanner Lefevre has a Hawkeye report. I think they'd probably be in the situation like, back off us a little bit. You're giving us too much press. I think they may be thinking that, whereas I think North Central Life, they understand the more we can talk about them, the more the better it is. With Iowa, they don't need us.
It's kind of funny, Kyle, from my perspective, where I go out of my way probably to talk less about Iowa because I actually am a Hawkeye fan, so I try to avoid it. But yeah, they certainly don't need me or you to promote them. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you have IA Wrestle, you have the Des Moines Register, you have the Press Citizen, like we mentioned, Tanner Lefevre. He's full time on a Hawkeye wrestling beat for the men and women, so they have this full beat of a media outlet nonstop. So that we talk about them in any capacity doesn't matter. People are going to want to go to the Hawkeyes, and you hear that in interviews. I want to be an Iowa Hawkeye. Go to junior college. Where do you want to go? I want to go to Iowa. So that's what I mean, how you filter that out. And so maybe that's why Gary didn't want to answer that question about how do you make the determination on who you actually recruit. And he wouldn't answer that, maybe because it's so massive and he doesn't want to put himself on the line.
Yeah, or basically, like, let's just say you said something and then somebody tries to hold you to that. Well, I did this and you said that. Like, I just don't think it's needed, But he was classic in his cryptic approach and not answering the question. I love it.
And then the one thing I've learned is you can have two things at once. And I love that the University of Iowa has a women's wrestling program. It's unbelievable. It's the right direction. It's what we needed. Everything 100% across the board is positive. But on the other hand, I can still feel bad that other programs that carried the sport all the way to this point didn't get the recognition that they deserve and still deserve. I think you
Yeah,
can have both of those thoughts at the same time.
absolutely.
And I'm in that camp. There's people that I wish would have gotten more credit and would have had more pop and love and just it's not just Iowa. And I love that Iowa's there. They're of course they're going to get attention and they're doing a fantastic job. Those coaches are unbelievable and across the board they are such great people and Dylan Carew just told a great story to me about Felicity Taylor won her match at Final X, and the coaches went over and told the big game coaches what a great job they did. They're just good people.
Yeah,
And of
sure.
course, Felicity was on the Iowa program, but I still wish that these programs like Life and like North Central, McKendree, Grand Valley State, King, I wish they would have gotten the pop that they deserve
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah, I mean, I think they did in their own way, like relative to the size of the sport and the attention at the time. I think everybody knew, when Jason Moorman and his crew of assassins walked into a room, and they were like world teamers, pretty much, NCAA champs, world teamers, top to bottom. I think everybody knew who they were, and Campbellsville had their teams, a lot of the college, McKendree, when they were on their run. I mean, so I think the people that know the sport know. And, it's incumbent upon us to promote this and talk about them, which I think God knows we've talked about North Central and Joe Norton a lot on this show, I mean, so we try, it just is like, it's the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rule, and it's like Iowa in wrestling is the goal, right? So it's kind of just the way it is. But I think people are aware of what these programs have done and the coaches. I mean, we talk about Lee Miracle, Campbellsville all the time and the legacy.
And retroactively, I know we're talking about the pop and what great things happen. And I always go back to that North Central Iowa duel from 2024, where it was 21-20, came down to the last match, activity clock. North Central won 6 matches to Iowa's 4. That was incredible, unbelievable crowd. But again, you go back to, I think it was the 2013 Simon Fraser King duel in Des
Uh,
Moines. That deserves so much more pop than what it got. Like, if we could go retroactively and say, let's put that on the center stage and let's get thousands of people for that, what an incredible duel that could have been. So that's what I'm thinking of,
yeah.
that never got the hype that it deserved.
Yeah, and I know you're a big fan. We've talked about duels and the national duels and how much we love dual meets. And Flo's doing this series on the dual meets. So this week's was it was JD Raider and Tyler Messinger, and they did it was where Bo Bassett is
Bishop McCourt?
Bishop McCourt against Wyoming Sem in this old, the Wyoming Sem wrestling room is in Old Bank, and then they have this dual meet in the gym. They're like number 1 and 2 is just this phenomenal dual meet with great energy, and you saw on the sidelines, and boy, they're just going crazy during the matches, and McCourt just hammered Sem, and they were just game on. I mean, they're both Bassett, Jack Forrest, but the point is, dual meets are important. And, you just bring. I know I'm changing topics, but like we need to promote our good dual meets. And as this sport keeps getting bigger at the high school level for women, we need to find ways to have these top teams compete against each other, and get it on FloWrestling and talk about it, highlight it. In college we need to highlight like the duels. Obviously these national tournaments, world team trials, Final X, but these dual meets are what the energy in a dual meet, and just the idea that somebody may lose a match but not get teched and that wins the match. So everything matters and the whole team's pulling for everybody. So, and I think there's nothing better. And you saw in the national duels when the women are wrestling, the energy on the sidelines is just better than the men. So as we grow this, we need to keep making sure that we keep women's dual meets front and center and do what we can to promote them.
And it's a fundamental remembrance in my mind. I may have brought this up, but it's always worth bringing up. National Duels 2024, which I just brought up, the 21-20 duel between Iowa and North Central. That was the show that year. All the men's mats, everything else didn't matter. Everyone collected toward that. And I can remember in 2011, 2010, 2009, when they had the women's national duels, part of that multi-divisional, they were an afterthought. They were pushed to the back. They were not part of the front showcase. And so to see that reversed and see the women be in the spotlight, be the number one duel, that was a neat moment for women's wrestling.
Yeah, and that was a legendary duel.
Yeah, it was iconic. So let's get more of that. We need that type of duel, and we need those rivalries, and that's why I hope, just like they had Iowa come to that inaugural national duels, they weren't supposed to be there because it was the first year. You got to get Lehigh to that national duels. I just think that's fundamental. Even though it's their first year program, you got to
need a
get
wild card of some sort if they're going to do it based on the previous. We don't know how they're going to do it, but yes, we have to get them for sure.
You got to get Audrey Jimenez and Aubrey Krazer and all those. Yeah,
that's
you got
amazing.
Yeah, they're the stars.
Absolutely.
Let's end with this. You brought up Abby Nettie a few episodes ago. Had a chance to write a story about her and the passing of her father. That's really stuck with me, and just some of the things she said. And one of the things she said that really was important was that she said all the things we talk about, all the striving for gold medals and competition and winning matches. She said all my dad wanted was to have his family around and to be loved at the end of his life. And so there's so many things she said in that I have carried with me and have thought about every single day. And so I know that Abby is someone that your daughter competes against, but she's also someone that you admire, and I admire Abby. And I think that it's important to remember these people and what they do and how she's dealt with that. It's an important topic.
Yeah, well, Abby's got her heart in a great place. She's a great competitor, and I mean, she's a direct competitor. But we actually, are friendly with her and looked forward. At the Open, we said let's meet in the finals. We did that time, and Michaela didn't get back there. Final X, but her family is the most important thing, and I know it meant a lot to her. She certainly was motivated this year and wrestled great. Took a match from Takara, and it's important that you put things in perspective, and it can be a driving factor, but it's a shame, you lose people, and I'll segue, to, wrestling lost a great one who was a personal freestyle coach of mine, and I worked with a lot, Al Bevilacqua. He was, I think, a director at one point of USAW. He was the coach forever. Big Al, or people would call him, or Al Bev or Bevy. His sons Chris and Mike both wrestled for Penn State. They're great wrestlers. I've wrestled against his son Mike, but it's a big loss. He was the energy behind Beat the Streets, which became, started in New York, became a national organization. He got me involved in it. We pulled Novogratz in, got Kira Barry on board, and then it became just national. But Al is just a larger-than-life figure, legendary coach, and a big loss. He passed away yesterday. My condolences go out to his family.